Marcel was rising fast in the meta, but now unexpected counters are starting to shut him down. Just weeks after his explosive debut, players are already flipping the script on this so-called unstoppable support. What looked like a game-breaking hero is suddenly getting exposed in high-level play. And here's the twist. It's not the obvious picks doing it. These are sleeper counters, low-key strategies, and smart adaptations that are quietly dismantling Marcel's dominance. Welcome back to Mobile Legends News. Marcel, also known as the Soul Photographer, entered the battlefield as a highly unique support hero with the ability to freeze moments, control projectiles, and dictate entire team fights. At first glance, his crowd control heavy kit made him feel almost overpowered, especially in coordinated play. But as the meta evolves, players are discovering creative and effective ways to counter him, revealing that Marcel's strength may not be as unstoppable as it first seemed. Now, here's where things get really interesting, because the fall of Marcel isn't coming from direct nerfs or obvious counters. It's coming from adaptation. The Mobile Legends Bang Bang community is doing what it always does best, evolving faster than the meta itself. And once you really break it down, Marcel's weaknesses were always there. They were just hidden behind how overwhelming his control felt at launch. To understand why these counters are emerging, you have to look at what actually makes Marcel strong. His entire identity revolves around controlling the flow of a fight. He can freeze moments, lock enemies in place, and even pause oncoming projectiles, forcing engagements to happen on his terms. His ultimate in particular is designed to create that one decisive window where everything stops and his team takes over. At a glance, that kind of power feels oppressive, especially in coordinated teams that know how to follow up perfectly. But the deeper players dive into his mechanics, the more they realize something crucial. Marcel doesn't truly eliminate threats, he delays them. And that single weakness is starting to unravel everything. Instead of trying to beat Marcel at his own game, players are beginning to reject the structure he thrives in. Marcel is at his best when fights are clean, predictable, and grouped. He wants his team to commit all at once so he can maximize his control and lock multiple targets in a single moment. But what's happening right now is the complete opposite. Fights are becoming messy, staggered, and unpredictable. Teams are engaging from multiple angles, sending threats in waves instead of all at once, and this creates a constant pressure that Marcel can't fully contain. If he uses his ultimate too early, there's always a second wave ready to punish him. If he holds it, he risks losing the fight before he even gets value. That hesitation alone is enough to reduce his impact. At the same time, faster and more aggressive playstyles are starting to expose the limits of his control. Marcel excels in drawn-out engagements where his team can capitalize on the space he creates. But against high-tempo pressure, those windows shrink dramatically. Instead of waiting for the perfect setup, players are forcing imperfect fights repeatedly. They're diving, disengaging, and re-engaging before Marcel can reset. This constant disruption makes his abilities feel less like game-changing tools and more like situational responses. And in the fast-paced environment of Mobile Legends, being reactive instead of proactive is a huge disadvantage. Another major shift comes from how players are approaching damage. Early on, many teams tried to avoid Marcel's control entirely, backing off whenever his ultimate was available. But now, the mindset is changing. Instead of avoiding his abilities, players are learning how to fight through them. Marcel's kit is designed to create opportunities, not necessarily to finish kills. That means if a team can deliver enough burst damage at the right moment, they can neutralize his impact completely. If a target gets caught but doesn't die immediately, Marcel wins that exchange. But if the same target gets eliminated before his team can capitalize, then all that control becomes meaningless. This has led to a rise in burst-heavy approaches that focus on instant impact rather than sustained setups. Players are timing their abilities in a way that overlaps with Marcel's mechanics. They're casting skills just before or during his freeze effects, essentially storing damage that will all hit at once when time resumes. It turns his own strength into a liability. Instead of protecting his team, his ultimate can unintentionally amplify incoming damage if used at the wrong moment. And once players understand that interaction, Marcel becomes far less intimidating. Positioning is also playing a massive role in his decline. Marcel relies heavily on keeping enemies within specific zones where his abilities can fully connect. But players are becoming more disciplined with their spacing. They're spreading out in fights, maintaining distance from each other, and avoiding tight formations that give Marcel maximum value. This forces him into difficult decisions. Using his ultimate on a single target feels inefficient, but waiting for a better opportunity often means missing the window entirely. That tension alone can make even experienced Marcel players hesitate. And hesitation in high-level play is often the difference between winning and losing. On top of that, mobility and repositioning are quietly becoming some of the most effective answers to his kit. Instead of trying to resist his control directly, players are simply moving out of it. Dashes, blinks, and displacement effects allow heroes to escape his zones before they become lethal. Even slightly repositioning can disrupt his setup enough to reduce his overall impact. And because many of his abilities require precise timing and placement, even a small disruption can throw off the entire sequence. This makes it incredibly difficult for Marcel to consistently land those perfect game-changing moments. There's also a growing awareness around how Marcel fits into the overall pacing of a match. While he's incredibly strong in early to mid-game skirmishes, his impact doesn't scale in the same way as damage-focused heroes. His control remains useful, but it doesn't necessarily become more threatening over time. Meanwhile, scaling compositions are getting stronger the longer the game goes. Players are starting to recognize this and are adjusting their strategies accordingly. Instead of trying to shut down Marcel immediately, they're focusing on surviving his early pressure and outgrowing his influence later on. Once multiple damage dealers are fully online, his control alone isn't enough to stop them. Itemization is another layer that's quietly contributing to his decline. Players are building with survivability and consistency in mind, prioritizing ways to endure his initial burst of control rather than avoiding it entirely. If they can survive the first wave of abilities, they can immediately turn the fight into their favor. Sustained damage builds are also becoming more popular, as they allow teams to keep pressure even when after Marcel disrupts their initial combo. This reduces the effectiveness of his timing-based playstyle, making it harder for him to dictate the flow of the fights. And finally, there's a factor that's always changing a meta faster than anything else: familiarity. When Marcel was first introduced, much of his power came from unpredictability. Players didn't fully understand his timing, his range, or how his abilities interacted with theirs. But now, the knowledge gap is closing. Teams are tracking his position more carefully, anticipating his engages, and preparing for his ultimate instead of reacting to it. That alone makes a massive difference, because Marcel's strength isn't just in what he does, it's in catching opponents off guard. And once that surprise factor is gone, so is a huge portion of his effectiveness. When you step back and look at the bigger picture, it becomes clear that Marcel isn't suddenly weak. What's happening is something much more interesting. The meta is evolving around him. Players are identifying patterns, adjusting their playstyles, and finding ways to minimize his strengths without directly confronting them. He's still capable of dominating fights, but only under the right conditions. And those conditions are becoming harder and harder to create. In the end, the rise of these unexpected counters isn't about any single hero or strategy. It's about understanding the nature of control itself. Marcel can dictate a moment, but he can't dictate an entire game. And as players continue to push the pace, spread out their formations, and refine their timing, that limitation is becoming impossible to ignore. Marcel's journey in Mobile Legends Bang Bang is a perfect example of how quickly a meta can evolve. What started as a seemingly dominant, high-control support pick is now being challenged by smarter playstyles, better positioning, and deeper mechanical understanding. Players are no longer overwhelmed by his ability to freeze fights. They're learning how to play around it, disrupt it, and even turn it against him. His strength doesn't disappear, but it's no longer unconditional. It now depends heavily on timing, coordination, and whether the enemy team allows him to dictate the pace. This shift highlights something every player needs to understand. No hero is truly unstoppable. Every strength comes with a weakness, and once that weakness is exposed, the entire perception of a hero can change. Marcel is still powerful in the right hands, but he's no longer the uncontested force he once appeared to be. And that's what makes the current meta so exciting. So now I want to hear from you. Which counters have been working best against Marcel in your ranked games? Drop your experiences in the comments and let's help each other climb smarter. And don't forget to check our next video on Mobile Legends news for updated builds, strategies, and the latest meta shifts. Till next time.